The RBA invokes climate change panic. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, I'm Florian Heise and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I've got my stein of coffee and I thought we'd have a look at this article from news.com.au. The RBA warned to mobilise all forces to save the economy from climate change-induced disasters. Now, before I get everyone in the comments going, you're a denier, yada, yada, yada. No, I firmly believe that the science behind the effects of man-made chemicals released into the atmosphere, molecules, increases in CO2, can indeed have an impact on the Earth. My concerns are a few. I'm very skeptical about the accuracy of long-term predictive modeling because I've seen how dodgy it is with short-term predictive modeling on very small things. I'm concerned with all of the economic modeling that goes on in the future, and I'll just bring up everyone's favorite chart here about the RBA's predictions about wage growth. I mean, if they can't even predict wage growth since 2011, they've just sucked at one element of our economy. Sure, it's a multivariate complex system, but if they can't even predict that, how complex is the global economy? And how will they have any chance of predicting 100 years in the future? Now, a lot of people will say, but Florian, 97% of scientists agree with this paper. Now, here's the thing. I come at this a little bit different to a lot of people. Because I'm an architect. I've gone through a university, I've got 2 degrees, and I've been exposed to a significant amount of what I would say greenwashing. Particularly in our final year, we had, I would say, it felt like we were hearing religious sermons about the environment, about global inequality, all these things. And in some ways, that actually woke me from the green world or the ideological driven mania that these professionals, these lecturers were putting upon their students. And I used that as an opportunity to challenge a lot of what they were putting in front of us, to make coherent counter arguments, to say ethically, a nuclear power plant could be an ethical solution because of it reduces carbon, it has this benefit reduces the cost here, it increases human development on the overall nation. There you go. It's where I really started to dig into and realize that these systems are much more complicated than people realize. Now, another advantage that we have, architects that is we have an understanding of the concept of embodied energy. Now, I'm going to do a more detailed video onto this about that topic at a later date, but fundamentally, let's say we'll have a look here. I will just jump here and let's have a look for reference. Let's look at the Australian energy market at the moment, and we'll see how they are going. And there you go. I mean, these are the X's are the windmills that are producing power, and most of them are below 30%. So they're not like 4%, 1%. 3%, 9%. Okay, so they're not very effective at the moment. Look at all the ones that are producing 0, guys. Look at our coal plants that are at over 100%. So one thing you have to understand, when people are talking about the advantage of building a wind farm because it will offset all the carbon from the coal being burnt in the plant or the gas being consumed or whatever other method you have to use, you need to realize there's embodied energy in all of these things. I mean, how many turbines is this? Some of these have got like 100 turbines in them, if not more. Now, the turbines, they're built with aluminium blades and steel to other structure and concrete, and all of those have energy embedded in those materials that is derived from the construction of that. Often, if the materials are shipped all over the world, there's also that transportation cost. So there needs to be a period of time where these things need to run just to pay back the energy used in the mining, manufacturing, and transportation. And not counting also the end-of-life issues that you have with a lot of these structures too. In America, they blow up these wind turbines to get rid of them. So I'm skeptical when anyone ever tells me that these are the solution, or this is the solution, or it's just one thing. More solar panels on everyone's houses. Because when you look at solar panels, sometimes it's smarter to wait a few years for more advanced technology and to put them on there, or their efficiency will get so low the embodied energy will never get paid off. An example I realized when I was doing my studies. In all the houses here in Queensland, we're meant to have certain insulation requirements in the walls and in the ceilings and the floors. And we need to get an Energy Star rating. And the Energy Star rating is modeled in a piece of software where they put a house in there, they model it up to see how energy efficient it is. And that's where I realized how easy it is to game the system, and how easy it is for people just to smudge a few little things, a few little details, saying, okay, we'll put 13 mil plasterboard here instead of 10 mil, and we'll get a tick. And they're never going to check what actually gets put in. It's all a bit of a joke, really. So if they can game systems like that, why wouldn't people be, let's just say, maybe a bit more choosing numbers that benefit their ideological bias or support the career they may have built a life upon? Because remember, all of these models, there's no certainty to them. There's always a significant variable, so I don't trust that either. And another thing, going back to embodied energy with the insulation, once I saw how easy it was for them to tweak the modeling in the energy ratings, I also realized that the embodied energy in the production of the insulation, and compared to the energy savings in the houses, will take 50 years to pay off. Okay? 50 years to pay off. And all of these things, they add to the cost of housing. They all add to the cost of housing. Just remember that. One reason why houses get more expensive, because I have a simple 100-year-old Queenslander where I've got no insulation. I've got a little bit in the roof, that was put in later, but under the floor, nothing, and the walls, nothing. You know, and is it saving? Am I losing less energy efficiency? Well, no, not really, because I don't have air conditioning, so it's kind of pointless. That's the thing. Oh no, it's going to get a bit colder in winter. That means I have to put a blanket on. Oh, it's going to get a bit hotter in summer. Oh, we open up the house to let the breeze through. So all of these things, I'm skeptical about it. Now, another thing before we go into this. So given that I have professional experience seeing how, the embodied energy of certain materials take exceptionally long to pay off, that we need to look at everything critically from an embodied energy and actual impact perspective, because certain things may not actually be the right solution, that professionals will be ideologically motivated, and that will influence their professional decisions and the impacts they can make. We also have to remember that Australia actually has no capacity to affect this global system. We're not significant enough to make an impact on a global scale. And I will bring up this quote from Dr. Alan Finkel, our chief scientist. If the world was to reduce its carbon emissions by 1.3%, what impact would they make on climate change of the world? And his response was that the impact would be virtually nothing. So Australia, and the 1.3% is because that is our carbon contribution to the world. And he goes on to say, but no, we should still show leadership. And you'll hear that argument over and over again, that Australia can be the leaders in renewable energy. But I have another counter to that as well. And we'll bring up another one of my favorite websites. I just have to check to make sure it's uploading. Here we go. The Observatory of Economic Complexity. And you can see here, we are not a very advanced nation. We are a raw mineral producing nation. We don't produce very many manufactured goods that we send overseas. We are currently ranked 59th in the world with the OEC measures. With the Harvard Atlas of Economic Measures, we are ranked, 93rd in the world. We can't be economic leaders, guys, in this, because we don't manufacture anything. Everything we do, all these wind turbine projects that we have a look, all these wind turbine projects that everyone is saying, oh look, Australia's the leaders. Most of this stuff is made in Germany or in China. A lot of it, they're made in Germany. They're quite impressive machinery. Don't get that wrong. Hopefully some Australian iron ore might end up in it. And Australians might get good at lifting up cranes and the logistics of moving things around. But I still wouldn't be surprised if they wouldn't be professionals brought in from overseas to help with that too. How the hell can that make us leaders when we're just buying products off the shelf and installing them here? That's not leadership, guys. That's consumerism, just on a national scale. We're national consumers. We're not an advanced enough economy to claim any leadership at all. If we were showing true leadership, we'd be looking at developing our nuclear industry to become completely carbon neutral then. But then, Florian, what about the nuclear waste? Fourth generation reactors can use 90% of the waste. North Korea is going to be more advanced than Australia when it comes to nuclear energy, everyone. Don't worry, we'll still have vegans protesting all this rubbish. So this is where, and I know the trolls will appear in the comments about this, oh, it's a foregone conclusion. No, it's not. You probably just don't, if you believe that, honestly, you probably just don't have enough life experience to get a few of your misconceptions of authority figures and and what's told you in the media challenged. You're probably either too young, or you haven't worked, or your profession, you just haven't been exposed to these type of things. Everyone rags on architects. We're kind of the jack of all trades and master of none, except design. But that gives us a very unique perspective that I'm not realizing. I thought the concept of embodied energy was common knowledge. I thought the concept of opportunity cost was common knowledge, because there's one more thing I will bring up before we go into this article, and I know I'm putting this article off, but I feel like I have to with just all the comments we get. This is a talk, John Longborg from TED from 2005, and he lists global priorities bigger than climate change, because this comes from the concept of opportunity costs. You have finite resources. Even the RBA with their magic money printing, there will come a point when people realize that their magic money is worthless and it will lose its value. So there's a finite amount of time they can do that. Here, Lomborg looks through, with his Copenhagen consensus, other issues on a global scale that should be dealt with before climate change, because the actual impact of climate change is not that significant in the long term. And that's discounting the fact that it is a very slow moving issue, and we will probably develop technology that can address it. I would argue that if we hamper our economy by trying to do these pathetic interventions to show leadership and make no actual impact other than increasing our cost of living, increasing the cost of research, reducing money that can actually flow to research, it's going to have a negative impact. It's going to actually have the opposite of what these people are hoping it'll do. It's going to cause more problems in the long run, and it'll reduce our quality of life. But nonetheless, I encourage you all, if you haven't watched this video, have a look at it. I would add something else to it. And I would put number 1, non-communicable diseases. I'd put type 2 diabetes and diet. I would put the surge in popularity of socialism. And don't go at me with, oh, but socialism, was fantastic. No, it's not. It's failed every single time, guys. The only people are lazy. The only people who think that socialism is good are the 80% in the Pareto principle. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up. Okay? They're the ones that sit on the back of the ute pushing from the tray, that we just say. So let's have a look at this article and see the RBA's warning to mobilize all forces to save the economy from climate change-induced disaster. I mean, yeah. And what the hell does the RBA know about the economy? They're always constantly surprised. They're trying to manipulate the economy and manipulate the market with their levers. The RBA has been urged to mobilize all forces to save the economy from a disaster induced by climate change. The world's most powerful banks have issued a warning that climate change could trigger the next global financial crisis. Okay. Wow. That's smart, isn't it? That is smart. So not just the insane monetary systems, all the interventions. No, it's climate change. It's brilliant in a way, isn't it? Brilliant. Completely pushing the blame. I'm impressed. It's complete bullshit. In an expansive new report, the Bank of International Settlements told its members they had to start including climate change in their thinking about stability of the economy. The BIS, the Switzerland-based international body comprising of more than 50 of the world's most influential central banks, including the Australian Reserve Bank, warned the RBA could be forced into rescuing the economy and the environment. The RBA may have to buy up coal mines and fossil fuel power stations to reduce the economic impact. Why? Maybe we just need to educate people about reality. Maybe we need to do that. This is nuts. You don't want the RBA doing that. During the global financial crisis, some central banks intervened to save private banks and insurance firms as part of the program to protect the economy. No, this is the problem right here. They are not allowing for the natural creative destruction in the economy. Okay? They have to allow that to happen. They're not allowing it to happen. If you don't take your medicine, if you don't hack off a gangrene foot, it's just going to keep going gangrene. That's a very disgusting metaphor, guys. Sorry. The BIS said this could be the template used in the case of climate emergency. So, we have the Reserve Bank that can generate money out of nothing buying private assets. Does anyone else feel worried about that prospect? Pushed by a global central organization. Should we get our tin hats on, our aluminium foil hats on, guys? In the worst case scenario, central banks may have to confront a situation where they're called upon by their local constituencies to intervene as climate rescuers of last resort, it said. The BIS warned that economic models mapping out possible climate scenarios were inherently incapable of dealing with the many overlapping forces that would lead to a lower emissions economy. They're not even capable of predicting wage increases in a year's time. How the hell do you even think they're capable of modeling that? And then there's so much variation. Even in the IPEC report, there's so much variation in where they think that it'll land. Like sea levels are apparently rising. Either 1 centimeter or 5 meters, whatever you pick. Everything in between. We've got a buffet of options. I mean, this is the thing, guys. To me, this sounds like end of times cultish panic. It seems no different to the spiritualist movement at the turn of the last century in the US. You know, where everyone thought the world was coming to an end. And you had all these cults appear. Fundamentally, climate-related risks will remain largely uninsurable or unable to be hedged as long as a system-wide action is not taken, the BIS said. Well then, that's fine. Then people suffer a loss, and that's fine. People can suffer a loss. Maybe all those people buying those beachfront properties. It's funny how the market hasn't responded to all this climate change hysteria, has it? It urged central bankers to be more proactive in pushing governments on the transition to a greener economy, while also urging governments to steer financial institutions and businesses towards accounting for climate-related risks in their investment decisions. It comes as 4 of Australia's leading international aid organisations have urged the Morrison government to take major climate change action amid the country's bushfire crisis. Oh, come on. Okay, here's the chief scientist. It's not going to make any difference. It's not going to make any difference. If you want to really make an impact on people's lives, you need to address the non-communicable disease epidemic. You need to address the obesity epidemic that is ravaging our country, and the fact that so many people are now steering towards these vegan garbage diets. And don't get me wrong, most of humanity is on a plant-based diet in the Western world. Okay? That high carbohydrated processed crap, majority of that is plant-based. That would make a real difference. Here we go, Oxfam. World Vision Australia, Oxfam Australia, Plan International Australia, Save the Children Australia have joined forces to plead for stronger climate measures. Okay, Oxfam we talked about yesterday. They lost all their credibility to me there. A bunch of socialists. Plan International, I did a video about them 2 years ago, right at the beginning. I think this, not the Australian version, but the overseas one. They were making apps to some female-centric rubbish to control your Twitter. So, yeah. World Vision, whatever, I haven't looked at them, and Save the Children, I haven't looked at them either. But let me know your experiences. I mean, these organizations, in some ways, they need to keep people in a destitute situation for their own benefit, or else they cease to exist. They'll just keep growing. I would argue that Amazon has done more to lift people out of poverty than Oxfam has. You know, capitalism is a good thing, guys. If you don't think it is, maybe you should try doing some work. So, the group wants more ambitious emissions reduction targets to limit the global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees. Well, I mean, who cares? I don't give a shit what a bunch of charities think. They've got no professional understanding of that. I mean, they're in their own little social justice bubble. What do we care? What do we care, guys? Do they realize that, here's the conspiracy. Do they realize that implementing all of these drastic measures will increase the cost of living and probably increase the people that need access to their services and increase more funds going towards them? Now, is that just too conspiratorial to think? Could they be that devious? I wouldn't have believed that until I saw the Uniting Church's representative at the cash ban, just hearing how much he was going on at the Black Economy Task Force. Now I could think there could be some weasels, as I would say. I'd call them weasels in these organizations. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe I need more coffee. I'm just getting sick and tired of reading about the climate change at the footnote of every bloody article. You can see it's a consistent message they're pushing, but they're not looking at it with any rigor. And they're journalists, okay? Journalists, they don't have critical thinking skills. The time for debate about climate change is over. No, it's not. Nope, we'll just ignore that. The organisations have called on Australia to demonstrate strong leadership. Well, no, we can't. I already told you that. We're importing everything. We can't. Being a consumer isn't a form of leadership. We'll just skip that too. The 4 charities have called for the coalition government to sign an intergovernmental declaration on children, youth and climate action. Okay, more posturing. I guess that's better than doing something. Our organisation acknowledges that this issue is so pressing we must advocate in alliance. Oh, shouldn't you already be in alliance anyway? So that kind of throws a thing there. The Australian arms of World Vision, Oxfam Plan and Save the Children describe climate change as a human rights issue impacting on health and adequate standard of living. Okay. Each day our aid workers see the very, very real and devastating impact of climate change on the world's most vulnerable people. No, they don't. They see the the devastating impact of just economic activity. Particularly if you're talking about Africa there, it's not climate change that's having those impacts. It is the string of socialist governments, dictators, and just economic nightmares that have happened in Africa. It's one of the richest continents in the world. There are a wealth of problems that have been going on in Africa for hundreds of years, even before the colonialism came that you guys all are going to hate on Australia Day, all the lefties. Okay? So no, don't even go there. The group pointed to a food crisis in southern Africa, severe floods in Indonesia, and a deadly cyclone in Mozambique. Yeah, well, guys, these things have happened all throughout history. All throughout the history of mankind. You pick up the Bible. Look at that. Ancient history there. Look at any ancient Roman history. Look at all the ancient Sumerian civilizations. What were they doing? They were building and advancing and intervening in the environment to ensure a buffer for when times got worse. This has always happened. Australians are suffering through the devastating ongoing fallout from the worst fire season on record. No, it's not. With dozens of lives, thousands of homes, and more than 1 billion creatures lost. Fires continue to rage, and millions are breathing in hazardous air across 3 states. Climate action has been brought into sharp focus by Australia's deadly bushfires and issued sparking tensions within the coalition. Okay. This is just ideologically motivated drivel to try and get more power in the hands of the RBA. This is very worrying that this isn't just being ridiculed. Who wrote this? Who wrote this? Where's the name? Oh, no one wrote this. No one wrote this. Funny. Funny that. Maybe someone's too embarrassed to put their name to it. They should be. They really should be. This is rubbish. This is utter rubbish. If you're, bushfires, have a look. Government was warned in 2015 about fire loads. I've been talking to people on the practice committee of the Institute of Architects here when I was a member. Bushfire experts were worrying about all this stuff for years. Years ago. Even a decade ago now. I'm getting old. Okay? You think putting up more windmills that do bugger all, that are running at nearly 0% is going to make any difference? Any difference? Let's have a look. Let's see how it's going now. Guys, it's been, a few minutes? Oh, wow. Yeah. Look at those. They're still all not running. Hope you're not getting a blackout in Melbourne and can watch this video. Okay, do you really think, guys? Come on. The cost of these things, 100 million a pop, 150, 200 million a pop. 5 of them producing 9%. You can get a gas turbine that can produce 156 and meet the needs when we have spikes. Got a whole lot of gas right here. Tons of it. So cheap to access. So you can see this is all starting to frustrate me. It's the same old rubbish over and over again. I can't see. Tell me, okay? Counter my arguments. The appeal to authority, the 97%. I've seen people promoted to professorship that didn't really hadn't achieved the qualifications just for political reasons in university organizations. I've seen university lecturers fire tutors who pointed out where they were giving advice that would get students deregistered and fired in lectures and save them the embarrassment, and who was critical of them combining non-professionals with professionals in the same course to save money. So, my respect for authority, particularly in the academic world, is severely challenged. I've seen modeling on a small scale in professional bodies used as part of the method to address climate issues completely fudged and meaningless. I've seen repeatedly economic modeling used to forecast completely fail. I'm quite skeptical of just the variation, the big change in where something can lead over 100 years' time when we can't even forecast. Apparently we weren't meant to get rain until April. Well, it's January 21st now. We've had 2 days of rain here. There you go, guys. Remember, these are emergent outcomes. Where there is an emergent outcome, it's highly complex. We don't have the capacity to predict the future with 100% accuracy. What I can tell you with certainty, with utter certainty, is if the RBA starts intervening in the economy even more, if our cost of living goes up, that will decrease the quality of life for average Australians more than you can imagine. It will decrease the quality of life for people all over the world more than you can imagine. And it will have absolutely no impact on climate change on a global scale. I would say it would actually have a negative impact because we would lose our ability, or our research ability, our ability to deal with this slow-moving issue will be significantly reduced and hampered. Let me know what you think, guys. Anyway, thank you for joining me for this episode of HeiseSays. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and want to help us produce more content, I have a Patreon where you can make a small monthly donation. We also have the ability for you to join the channel here on YouTube, where you get access to badges and emojis. You can use our referral links at Independent Reserve for crypto, Amazon and eBay for your consumer purchases. We sell our own merch at the HeiseSays website, pocket squares for any event or any climate protest. And finally, you can make a contribution via PayPal. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day, and I will talk to you later. Bye for now.